Several months ago, the independent film Coda about a teenage girl living with her deaf family won the Oscar for Best Picture. It was a heartwarming crowd-pleaser that was also critically acclaimed, so it's understandable why voters would gravitate towards it. And yet Coda was nonetheless considered the underdog that beat the odds. Even when it premiered at the Sundance Film Festival, it was not seen as a potential contender to win the film industry's top award. Before I get into what led to its victory, what are my own thoughts on the movie? I think Coda succeeded in being a sweet and funny high school movie, well directed and written by Sean Heder. What I really like about the movie is how it depicts the Rosie family and how we're able to get to know them and how they live their life. There's a natural family dynamic with the way they interact, and each actor is able to give these characters so much personality. Amelia Jones is excellent in the lead role of Ruby, portraying her various emotions as she tries to figure out the next step in her life and pursue her singing ambitions. Marlee Matlin is also wonderful as her mother, with Troy Kotsur and Daniel Durant delivering strong work too. It's often brought up how heartwarming the film is, but I don't think it's gotten enough credit for how genuinely funny it is. I did not expect so many laugh-out-loud moments, and that adds to what an enjoyable film this is. I've seen a few criticisms that Coda is too schmaltzy, and the heart-tugging moments are too obvious. However, I thought the film worked precisely because it did not beat you over the head with the parts meant to be emotional. The characters react how they naturally would, and the plot progressions make sense within the context of the story. An example is a scene near the end as a pivotal moment for Ruby. Heder could have really gone bombastic and overboard, but she instead focuses on the main character and lets Jones's performance allow us to understand what's going through Ruby's head. The obstacles the Rosie family face are well integrated into the story and explore the right amount of drama and character development. Coda may have deaf characters in significant roles, but it never uses their deafness as a prop to get tears out of the audience. They are portrayed as regular working people who want to make money from their fishing and desire to build relationships and make sure they're not harmed by unfair business practices. The movie just feels genuine in its storytelling and how the actors play the characters, and that's why it resonated. Like I said, few people predicted it would win the Oscar, even when award season was chugging along. It was only in the last few weeks before the ceremony that people started having an inclination the movie could win Best Picture. One remark occasionally thrown at Coda was that it was Oscar bait that obviously existed to win the biggest award in Hollywood. However, Coda was actually an independent French-American co-production from the company Pathé Films. Pathé is a notable film company with several well-regarded movies in their credits, and they've been involved in a few Oscar winners. However, I don't think they had serious Oscar aspirations when they greenlit the film. They just wanted to make an English-language remake of the French movie The Bel-Air Family, with producers Philippe Rousselet and Patrick Wasberger feeling it was a story that would appeal to an American audience. They even encouraged Sean Heder to put her own spin on the story, rather than making a shot-for-shot remake. When Coda premiered at Sundance, it did not even have American distribution yet. That's when Apple swooped in and acquired it for $25 million, a record for the festival. The movie received a limited release in August, the same day it debuted on Apple TV+, but did not seem to get too much attention. When the big autumn film festivals arrived in September, awards predictors and distributors were mostly paying attention to the movies premiering at Toronto and Venice, and also waiting ones still a few months away, like Don't Look Up and West Side Story. However, around this time, Apple made Coda available on the Academy's streaming platform, which was the start of it slowly building word of mouth among Oscar voters. After The Power of the Dog premiered at Venice, Toronto, and Telluride to wide acclaim, it started being perceived as a potential Best Picture winner, although there were also rumblings about King Richard and Belfast. When reviews started coming in for West Side Story, there was also talk of that possibly winning the Oscar, although it was short-lived. As awards nominations were being announced, The Power of the Dog received its frontrunner status. It swept through many of the Critics Group's awards and picked up several nominations at organizations like BAFTA and eventually the Academy Awards. However, there's always a danger of being considered the easy frontrunner. There have been a number of movies over the years that were hailed as the likely winner, but the tide then turned to another movie. This happened with Boyhood, Roma, The Social Network, Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, and most infamously with La La Land. Why is that? Well, part of the reason is that these films are built up, and then voters watch them and don't feel they lived up to the hype. You also have films that gained a sudden swing of support in the last few weeks before the voting deadline. Parasite is a perfect example of this a few years ago. For most of the awards season, there was not an obvious frontrunner. There was talk of maybe Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, or The Irishman possibly winning. At some point, 1917 started winning a bunch of awards, including the BAFTA for Best Film, the Producers Guild Award, and Directors Guild Award. So obviously that was going to win the Oscar. However, Parasite appeared to have a lot of support within the industry, especially evident when it won the SAG Award for Best Ensemble Cast. That late surge was enough to see that movie win Best Picture. Coda had a similar trajectory. Power of the Dog did win the DGA Award and BAFTA for Best Film. However, a few things made some wonder about its Oscar possibilities. One is the Netflix factor. Netflix has been trying really hard to win the Oscar to prove their worth to the industry as more than just a streaming service. There's this perception that a lot of the older voters turn their noses up at Netflix for their distribution strategy, although who knows how true this is. The other one I heard is that maybe The Power of the Dog was considered too cold and too much of a pensive western. I would argue a pensive western has already won Best Picture, Unforgiven. However, that also had the Clint Eastwood legacy attached to it. Now, if you were to look purely at Oscar statistics, Coda had a lot going against it. For starters, Sean Heder was not nominated for the Directors Guild Award. Until Coda, only 2 movies had won Best Picture without a DGA nomination, Hamlet and Driving Miss Daisy. Heder also did not receive a Best Director nomination in the Oscars. This used to be something that immediately damaged a film's chances at winning Best Picture. For the longest time, only 3 films had won the top prize without a directing nomination: Wings and Grand Hotel during the Academy's early years when they were still figuring things out, and Driving Miss Daisy. However, in the past decade, that number has doubled, with both Argo and Green Book accomplishing it prior to Coda. They were at least nominated for Best Film Editing, though. Coda wasn't. In fact, it did not receive any nominations from the crafts categories, which appeared to indicate a lack of support from the below-the-line branches. Most of the support for the movie seemed to come after the nominations, so maybe if there was more buzz prior to that, it could have gotten recognized for Best Sound and Best Film Editing. A trend I've noticed with the Oscars is they seem to spread the wealth around a lot more these days. It was not uncommon before for a Best Picture winner to sweep through the ceremony and win at least 7 Oscars. Look at winners like Amadeus, Out of Africa, Schindler's List, The English Patient, Titanic, and The Return of the King, to name a few examples. You don't see much of those sorts of victories anymore. The last Best Picture to win at least 6 Oscars was The Hurt Locker, and the last one to take home 5 was The Artist. Since then, it's common to see the Best Picture only win in 2 or 3 extra categories. Spotlight even wound up with just 1 additional award. So even with Coda only being nominated in 3 categories, that did not seem to harm its chances at all. It became possible that Coda could win when it won the Producers Guild Award and the SAG Award for Ensemble Cast. The former uses the same preferential balloting system as the Academy's Best Picture, and the latter showed the film had wide support from actors, the largest branch in the Academy. The film also won a Writers Guild Award, another important precursor to the Oscar. In many ways, Coda wound up almost similar to Little Miss Sunshine. That movie won the same 3 awards prior to the Oscars, which made people wonder if it could win Best Picture. Like Coda, Little Miss Sunshine also was not recognized in any of the crafts categories, was not nominated for Best Director, and eventually won Oscars for Best Supporting Actor and for its screenplay, although it did receive a nomination from the Directors Guild. In the end, it did not win Best Picture, but that was back when there were only 5 nominees and there was no preferential ballot. Maybe with today's system, Little Miss Sunshine would have won. Of course, once it looked like Coda had a chance of winning Best Picture, that's when a bit of a backlash set in. I remember seeing comments saying it did not look like a Best Picture winner, which is an odd remark. Should only epic films win, or biopics on famous historical figures? They've given Best Picture to quite a few films about just regular people living their lives. Look at Marty, or The Apartment. They literally gave the award to a movie called Ordinary People. I've also seen Coda dismissed as a Disney Channel original movie. Last I checked, Disney Channel did not invent inspiring films centered on a teenage main character. I'm pretty sure Mickey Rooney and Judy Garland were starring those back in the 30s and 40s. However, it's sadly inevitable that most Best Picture winners agreed with complaints of that didn't deserve it. In the end, Coda was able to warm the hearts of voters with a sweet and crowd-pleasing story. Sean Heder was not trying to win an Oscar with this movie, despite accusations of it being Oscar bait. She just wanted to make a film with deaf actors in principal roles that treat them and the way they live their life with respect. Apple was able to get voters to see the film through word of mouth and genuine interest. The film winning, despite all statistics being against it, also shows that awards pundits are going to have to find new ways of predicting what will win at the ceremony from now on, as it's clear the old rules no longer apply. The fact that Apple became the first streaming service to win the Oscar for Best Picture also deserves applause. I'm sure a traditional studio will win next year, or maybe Netflix may finally get it. It's a little too early to say what will be competing for the Academy's attention next. There were a number of worthy films I would have been happy to see win, like Nightmare Alley, or Licorice Pizza, or West Side Story, but I'm certainly pleased Coda was able to pull through and take it home. See you next time.